Welcome to another We Talk Chelsea podcast. Three Chelsea loving friends united for a love of Chelsea Football Club, and it feels like Groundhog Day once again. Soon as a bit of momentum comes into play, Chelsea managed to balls it up and complete their looking like yearly loss to Brentford at Stamford Bridge, losing 2-0. Charlie, how you doing? You okay? How you feeling post Saturday lunchtime kickoff?
Yeah, it's just so frustrating, isn't it? That's all I'll say is that I obviously we were 3 wins on the bounce. I think if you include the Brighton League Cup victory, um, and then the Arsenal game, which looking back, there was so many positives you could take from that match, and it just felt so frustrating that you just think that we're finally maybe getting somewhere, and again, we're back to the same old style of defeat. A home match, Stamford Bridge used to be a fortress. Now it's a place that teams in the bottom half of the table can pick up away wins, which is really concerning. And obviously, we'll delve into that in further detail as to why that is. But on a whole, as a whole sort of experience, it was just frustrating, if I'm being honest. Very frustrating that we haven't managed to use that stepping stone, if you like, to push a little bit further up. But yeah, it is what it is. We're used to it, I think. Tem, there's a bit of a delay, by the way, viewers, with Tem today, so just bear that in mind. But Tem, what did you think of the match?
It was something expected happening at the end of the day. The game kicked up. I saw starting then. I just knew what was happening, and as soon as that first goal, I think we all thought the game was over, and that was it at the end of the day.
You got a bit of sound issues. Might be worth just turning your camera off and then just
not coming through.
Yeah. We'll turn the camera off for Temba. It means you have to just deal with Charlie and Tom's, myself's weird-looking mugs. Oh, he's gone. All right, it's just me and you, Charlie. Let's go for it. We'll start with the very
what did
beginnings.
you think, mate?
Same shit, different week. Let's have a look at it here. So the Chelsea 0, Brentford 2, the starting 11. And when that first starting 11 was announced, I think you and I were both quite bemused. I think we all expected Malo Gusto to start, as well as potentially Reece James. But it looks like Mauricio Pochettino lining up in the 4-2-3-1, went with Axel Disasi. It was a little bit strange to put him in that position. If I bring it up here now, I just didn't. Why do you think he decided to go for Disasi and not an out right back in favour of just go for Disasi in favour of Gusto or even Reece James?
Yeah, that was probably the only thing in the starting 11 that didn't quite make sense. Obviously, there was a little bit of a shock, Enzo not playing, but that was understandable with the birth of his daughter. Is it daughter? Is it Enzo? Not quite sure, but certainly a child. And obviously Mudryk, there was something there as well. So. Yeah, I mean, I would say it was pretty much as expected under the circumstances, but yeah, the back line was a little bit strange. I actually said before the match, Silva can't surely play every match this season, and yet he has up to now. And this match just seemed as though one that we could probably afford to play with without Silva. We've got enough in reserve to play without Silva. And like you say, Gusto had been playing okay up to that point. We also have Reece James apparently available, although probably not fit enough to play the full. But apart from that, I think I was pretty satisfied, to be honest, with the starting 11.
Yeah, I think it was very strange. Yeah, like you make a valid point. Like we have to start looking at Thiago Silva as not being a main starter each and every week. As much as I love Thiago Silva, I think he's an absolutely fantastic football, but we have to think long term. And if the long term partnership is going to be Disasi and Colwill as like the main two, this is, like you said, the perfect game to do so. I think he put Disasi in for height reasons, because I know Brentford like to spray the ball forward. I mean, look at Flecken, the Brentford goalkeeper. He was taking all the free kicks from just inside Brentford's half. So he's looking to exploit the lack of height for Chelsea. And then Malo Gusto could have been the opportunity there, but it's horses for courses. We're not too sure what would happen either way. I mean, Temba, when you look to the initial starting lineup on this one, is anything that particular that took you by surprise? I mean, Noni Madueke not started for a few weeks now since I think it was the game against Wimbledon was his last start.
Yeah.
Were you surprised by that?
Yeah, I mean, I was totally surprised by that, but at the same time, I'm not sure what's happened with Mudryk. I don't know if anyone actually knows what's happened with him. If
He's
Pochettino
got
came
a
out saying it. Oh,
slight
right.
muscle injury.
Okay, right. That explains it. But apart from that, yeah, Madueke coming in was a bit strange for me. But I suppose we needed another winger to start, because it looked like he went with the four attackers, one striker and three behind. So yeah, it was just a bit. And obviously with Enzo having his child, I suppose he gave him the day off. So Gallagher and Caicedo again, not the best partnership. I don't think they complement each other quite well. So overall, I felt indifferent. I think just before I properly started watching the game, I thought, just looking at that 11, we were going to lose. Just from previous results, from what I've seen anyway of Chelsea of recent, it just looked like that type of game where, unless something special happened where we score that first goal, and I keep stressing it, we don't score that first goal. As soon as it starts getting to halftime, I just think, you know what, I'm right about it, because I think every team now knows if you ride us to halftime, you've got the best chance of winning, because as soon as you get that one chance, that one goal where you catch us with a lapse of concentration, or we don't focus, the game's surely done and over, because we won't break teams down. And it's something Pochettino struggles with. I think we've seen it at PSG, we've seen it at Tottenham, where the teams he's actually struggled against are the ones with low blocks and hard to break down. So yeah, like I say, it just seemed like the perfect storm where we just didn't look like we were going to score. But I suppose, yeah, like I say, I don't know. I just thought we were going to lose from the get go. From when I saw those chances missed, I wasn't impressed.
Well, we started particularly brightly. We started brightly though with Noni Madueke fortunately hitting the bar, and it's like what you said, Temba. And I think Charlie, you alluded to this something this just before going live is, we're seeing this a lot now from teams from the lower half of the table, just setting up the lower block against Chelsea. It's a common thing. Surely Mauricio Pochettino knows that the low block is going to be a thing each and every time a club comes to Stamford Bridge. Surely there must be a way to get through it now. This must be surely all the attackers train each and every week.
You're asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think on that, I think it's. I think part of the problem is that we just, like you say, we seem to turn up only for the matches, the teams that are sort of essentially going to maybe win, or teams that are above us in the table, like Arsenal, like Liverpool, and maybe like the run of games that we have. It does seem to suit us at the moment more. The problem I've always said that we have, and this is why I was there was half positivity, is that we weren't getting a lot of threat from midfield in terms of A, long range shots, and B, creativity. Palmer has changed that in recent weeks in terms of creativity, and also in terms of long distance shooting. Like Gallagher had at least one decent try. Jackson had a sort of long range try, and Madueke. I think it's going to take something like that to break these teams down that do a low block. We need something else. It can't just be the same old. We're going to go down the wing and we're going to just get to the byline if we can, and nick a corner and maybe nick a goal. A bit like what we did against Leeds last season. We won. It was a big game, and I think it was Fofana who scored. It was a 1-0. That kind of we can't rely on that sort of thing. It's not the way that you're going to win matches by just. That's a very sort of small team mentality. There has to just be, 3 or 4 ways that we can penetrate a team, be it down the wing, be it in midfield or whatever. And I think a lot of it's long distance shooting, free kicks, things like that. We don't have a good free kick taker anymore since Mount left. There's no one who can take free kicks basically in this whole team.
I'd argue it's probably longer than Mount. Timber's dropped off
Yeah.
again, but I'd argue it's longer than Mount. I think the last decent free kick taker Chelsea had was probably Willian.
Yeah,
I think it's been that long. We haven't really replaced him. There's no out and out free kick taker in this team. Sorry, maybe not William. Maybe Marcus Alonso, which is probably one, but not a long distance one. But and the one thing I wanted to talk about as well is I wanted to talk about a performance that I thought was very, very poor, and it was highlighted by on Match of the Day as well. So I think Nicolas Jackson probably had his worst day in a Chelsea shirt. It's a tricky situation because obviously the majority of these players that we've brought in are young players, are all under the age of 24. You've got Thiago Silva being the one that's slightly older, Disasi I think slightly older as well. But and Sterling, you're expecting a lot from these younger players to do these types of runs. But I'd have thought it'd have been naturally instinctual to make these runs in behind or make those wrongs off to create space to allow for Cole Palmer to play these passes through onto him. But I just thought, I don't know if you agree, but I thought Nicolas Jackson was absolutely atrocious and he should have been taken off much, much sooner than what he was.
Yeah, I think this is a kind of a complex issue. I think for one, he's not a natural striker. He started off his career as a winger, inside forward sort of thing. So naturally, I just don't think he has that instinct of running without the ball and knowing where to be, as we've seen many times this season. And even when he likes to, I think, drive with the ball. Something I saw with Diego Costa, I think he adapted well to being in the right places at the right times. Because there was some games I remember when Diego Costa, he'd love this thing of coming out of the wing to try get the ball, or not being in the box when Hazard would cross it low in. And I used to wonder why, but then I looked up like his early career, and he used to be a winger also. So, but you think the amount of goals he actually scored in the box for Chelsea, and it was something he was great at doing. He adapted his game, and of course he's much older than Nicolas Jackson, so maybe that adaptation time came with it, and he sort of started to knowing where to be and making those runs. But when Diego Costa got frustrated, he did do those things which you saw Jackson do on the weekend, where he'd come outside the box maybe and try dribble past the player or receive it short. And I think Jackson, it's something he has to learn, and pretty fast, because the other issue is that we've pretty much banked on him being on number 1 or number 2 striker if Nkunku was the other option, and unfortunately Nkunku's injured, so all the sort of pressure goes now on him. And we've seen like he can't handle it at the moment. What the first game of the season against Liverpool, he looked quite good. He put up quite a good battle against Konate and Van Dijk, and I think we all thought, like, if he can do this against 2 of the best centre back pairing in the league, he could possibly go on and do more. And I suppose with what I've learned is that these players struggle, especially with a lack of space, I would say, to run into. I think they play. We've seen it anyway. We play better against teams that come against us rather than us going against them. So in this sense, there was not a lot of space in the Brentford box, so he needed to be more smart with his runs and more smart with the decisions he makes, rather than running everywhere or chasing every centre back and chasing every ball that we know he's good at. And like you say, with the chances we had, I think Kukurea had one, and maybe
that was Kukurea. That was a big chance, but that was played bizarrely through the middle. It was a chip pass over by Cole Palmer straight to Kukurea, and it's probably of all the players in that position, you probably wouldn't want Mark Cucurella to be the one to take that opportunity. But
on his
but
right foot. Yeah.
on his right foot as well, yeah. And you see Madueke getting a bit shirty with him because he didn't lay it off to him. But how much of this, Charlie, how much of this can be attributed to, is it simply just Nicolas Jackson just had a bad day, or how is it just an example of how good and how drilled, Brentford were, that back three of Pinnock, Azure and Nathan Collins, because they kept him quiet all game long.
No, it's not that. I mean, Brentford are a great, well-drilled team, but because we've seen this so many times before, it's obviously a pattern now. That's what I would argue. Yes, okay. You can get. I remember we got turned over by Brentford 4-1 2 or 3 years ago. That was a one-off. I think that was with Tuchel, and it was a one-off. And the next week we probably won, or it wasn't. It was just a bump in the road, as they say. A lesson learned. That sort of thing. But this kind of result, losing at home without scoring against a team who we would consider at the beginning of the season should finish beneath us, with an injury crisis as well. I mean, people don't realise Brentford have an injury crisis as bad as ours. That's why they've been so poor. They've also got Toney out as well, who's their obviously number one player, who hopefully we might be in for. So it's a pattern, that there's obviously something going on there, and you can't pin it all on Jackson, because ultimately, if Drogba had a bad game when we were winning leagues and titles, we'd still win the match. There's just other avenues. We have a very one-dimensional way of scoring goals, I've noticed. We don't have a good free kick taker. We're not particularly threatening from corners or set pieces. In the modern age of football, you've got to cover every single chance you get in a football match, and the luck, you make your own luck in this football. The two goals that we scored against Arsenal, one was a penalty and one was a fluky goal, and you could argue that, but ultimately they're both goals, so it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Arsenal's one was through two mistakes. They're still goals. You have to cover these bases. You have to put, if you've got a good free kick taker, you've got to make sure that you try and push for free kicks. There's all sorts of tactics that you can use, but the problem is we don't have too many good midfielders who can shoot from distance. We don't have much good free kick takers. We're basically relying heavily on a lot of other things, So
yeah, it's a very, very tricky situation. And then one thing that I noticed in the game is it was Cole Palmer. Cole Palmer again had another good game for Chelsea, but he looked at a frustrated player. This is a player who's 20, 21 years old, and even he's getting frustrated with players around him, like not making these runs in behind they need to. Like, a 21-year-old, 20-year-old shouldn't be the person that's, it's kind of like youth leading youth. Like, there should be an older player, and I think, hopefully when Christopher Nkunku comes in, that's a player I think once he's even, 85% fit, I could definitely see Pochettino dropping Jackson completely from the side and going with Nkunku as the number 9, and hopefully we can see some goals in that respect. But I see there's a lot of rhetoric that I've seen online as well in terms of the second goal. When we look at what actually happened with from the corner, online fans certainly heaping a lot of in my opinion, unnecessarily blame on Robert Sanchez for the second goal. There's not much he could really do in that scenario, really, is there, Tim?
No. I don't think there's anything. Well, I suppose stay on your line if that's a criticism. But at the end of the day, you're 1-0 down at that point. You're fighting back for a second goal. If we concede the second, what does it really mean at the end of the day? But if we get a point, that's a much bigger point for us than it is for us to concede a second goal. So I wouldn't harp too much blame on him. Again, Maatsen was maybe a little bit caught out there on the counter there, but again, like I say, you'd rather your keeper go up and try rescue a point than conceding a second, because at the end of the day, it really means nothing. Especially where we are, we need all the points we can get.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to agree. I mean, Charlie, one thing I wanted to talk about as well is Mark Cucurella had another absolutely fantastic game on Chelsea's left. When Ben Chilwell is available, Do you think Ben Chilwell is going to slot back in straight away, or could you see, the renaissance of Cucurella of kind of pushing him and keeping him out of the side for a little while longer once he is fit?
Well, I hope he does because we have to reward players' performances. Otherwise, we're not going to get anywhere. We this is what we had was the problem last season. There was a lot of players who got in the team just by default who didn't necessarily play with any form. Mount, Kovacic, Havertz. There was plenty of them out there who didn't deserve their place in the team, and there were plenty of other people who were sitting on the bench for no apparent reason. Cucurella, if he carries on his form, and I think in that first half especially, I think he tired out in the end. I think doing his job. I mean, like you say, he managed to get. He was playing as a centre forward at some parts of the first half. He was, playing as a left back, a left centre, left winger, like all sorts. So he really burst his energy in that first half. He just looks more confident. In the last few games, and I think a lot of Chelsea fans, game-going Chelsea fans, if you like, also I just noticed when you watch the crowd, they're clapping him a lot more. They're just a lot more on his side. It's nice to see. Actually, it's nice to see that it's coming to fruition because I liked him at Brighton and I thought when we signed him, I thought it was a really good signing. And I was there at Everton away last season when it was his debut. He looked really good, really assured. And it's good to have competition for places. And ultimately, look, Chilwell's he's very injury prone. Even if Chilwell is the number one, if he plays like that when he's required to, then that's as good as, and it gives us another option, doesn't it? Ultimately, so that's the main thing. But
yeah. I mean, before the second goal went in, Tim, I'll go back to you. Appreciate you probably having issues, but let's say you can hear me. How did Pochettino, do you think, performed at the weekend itself? I mean, we're looking at the timing of the substitutions here. Like the first substitutions, weren't until the 67th minute. You were Disasi and Madueke. I appreciate the depth in the bench probably wasn't there, but do you think he waited too long to make the change?
Yeah, I don't know if you can see somewhere along the bottom there. If you scroll down a tiny bit, it shows you scroll down a bit more. I think
the momentum.
Yeah, the first half in particular.
Mm-hmm.
No, scroll down a tiny bit more. I think it's the stats. It shows you the stats, and I just wanted to harp upon if you scroll down, scroll up, sorry, where it shows you the first half and second half. Somewhere it says there, it shows you the stats.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if you see like that first half, this is what really frustrated me. If you see that first half, I think we should be ahead. Looking at those stats and just looking at and this is how we lose games. This is we do this to ourselves. I don't think it's a thing of, Chelsea are so bad and Chelsea blah blah blah. We exhaust ourselves by not scoring chances because any other team you put those chances to them, I think they're 1 or 2-0 up, and it's something I harp about because it makes our performance a lot more difficult, and the game look worse when we produce stats like that for just even a half, whether it's first or second half. And we really should be putting away chances like that, because I think we're in the top 3 creators in the league in terms of chances created. Although I know stats can be a bit misleading, but it just shows you that I suppose with clinical players, like Charlie said, even if you have someone on the edge of the box who can shoot, get a deflection, it falls to a striker and he taps it in. We don't do things like that. You know exactly how to defend against us. We're gonna try and go to the byline, cross the ball in. And I think Cole Palmer, like Charlie much said, he's added us a different dimension. That clip ball that he did there, I don't think there's many players in our team who would even attempt to do anything like that. I don't know, apart from maybe Enzo. I don't think there's a player in our squad who do that, and it's just again frustrating when you see stuff like that. And then Pochettino with the subs that he makes, I suppose what could he do with the players we had left? I think Washington, unfortunately, he's never played Premier League game in his life. And if you saw from his Instagram post, he was just happy he came on at the end of the day, and he seems like he's happy to be here. But at the end of the day, it shouldn't be a situation where we're relying on him to get us back in a crucial Premier League game, a local derby, a London derby. So yeah, against Spurs, if we go 1-0 down, what are we going to rely on David Washington again to try and bail us out?
Yeah,
I mean, and again, does that fall on Pochettino? I want to throw this question to you guys. Does that fall on Pochettino, or does it fall on the board, or both?
I'll let you go first, Charlie.
One thing I will say about when we were saying about the low block and this sort of stuff, and we've seen it all before, and that there was elements of the attack, especially in the first half, that I hadn't seen before. The likes of Cucurella getting in those positions. These were obviously drilled from Pochettino. Like, we need to surprise this team in some way. Cucurella get it right in the middle there, where Jackson would normally be, and Palmer just, have a bit of more of a free role. Just try and surprise them a bit, because we have been playing one dimension. It didn't work, yeah, I'll grant it. But even if you look at those stats, Tem, like first half, it's still less than 1 xG. Okay, yeah, we had a lot of shots, but in terms of shots on target, big chances won. I'm guessing that was Cucurella. That's it. That's all we've had.
Yeah.
Like, so it wasn't. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, if we had a striker, we not really, because strikers miss big chances. Haaland misses big chances every match. He just gets in those positions more. But I don't think it's. I think the first half was good, but that was the biggest thing that I would say with what we did at half time, and I alluded it to you on the group. Like, there's no one on that bench who can influence that game. If we're 1-0 down, what are we throwing on? Reece James is probably the only person that has any sort of influence on that game, and he's just coming back from injury. And apart from that, there was nothing there. So that's kind of the issue. I don't know how much to blame Poch, to be honest. I don't blame him too much, if I'm being honest, because we've had how many managers now since Tuchel, and none of them have been able to do any better. So
yeah, I mean, in my opinion, you can't blame Pochettino in this scenario. You just can't. He can only play the hand that has been dealt to him, and it rests highly with the board itself. We said all through the summer, every single Chelsea fan has been crying out for a striker, and we obviously thought that Lukaku was going to be the one that was going to do that a couple of seasons back, but unfortunately, this didn't work out. But we all thought that we needed a striker, and we're still here. Nearly since the interview happened, I think it was like December 2021 or something like that. We're like, okay, well, we need to get a new striker. It's been nearly 2 years, and we're still talking about how we need a striker. We still need a person that's going to put balls in the back of the net. It's going to take those chances, like you said, Charlie. It rests solely with the board. Like, they've invested a lot of money, but they've invested money in areas where I don't think we really need to invest in. If you look at players like Romeo Lavia, 55 million, we could have put 55 million towards a striker instead. Like, we didn't need to get Lavia in, but we brought Lavia in. It could work out fantastically. We didn't need to bring in Ugo Chukwu, but we did. But there's other areas we should have invested in before we were just trying to get any, young under 23 player that we possibly could. It rests solely with the board. And, come January time, they've got a lot of, there's chances are we could miss out on Europe again. Like, I don't think any of us expected us to get top 4. Like, I don't think any of us expected this, but we, with our positive hats on, we were thinking, okay, even if we can get to Europa League or Conference League or something along those lines, doesn't matter how we do it. Like, if we win, the League Cup, we get into the Europa League. That'd be fantastic, wouldn't it? But I don't think any of us can see us potentially challenging for Europe. We're only 11th on goal difference. I know it's very relatively early days, but let's kind of evaluate it now, though, Charlie, because we're over 25% of the season, way into the season already. We're fast approaching. We're in the midst of our really difficult fixtures at the moment now. What does Pochettino focus on now? Is it simply just trying to steady the ship, or should he think, do you know what, we need to really proper push for these cups to kind of get us an outside chance to get into Europe?
I think after Saturday, it's fairly obvious we're probably not going to get into Europe. The other thing is as well, the teams around us are playing okay. Aston Villa look pretty tasty. The top four is, in my opinion, pretty much decided. I think it'll be Tottenham, Arsenal, City, Liverpool in, probably not in that order, but in some order. And then, there's other teams around Villa, Brighton, teams ahead of us that are better than us, basically. Obviously, we're running into this fixture list. I mean, I will say one thing is that this fixture list might not be bad for us in the sense that, again, teams that play to us, we tend to do better against. I don't think, for example, on Monday we're playing Tottenham, obviously, who are top of the league. I don't think we'll go there and lose 5-0. I really don't. I just don't think. I think defensively we're fairly sound.
Oh, wow.
No, I don't. I just don't. I don't think we'll win, but I just don't think we'll lose 5-0 either. I think it'll be, we might lose 2-0 or something like we did last season. I don't think it'll be. I don't think we'll go there and get battered. It's not like that. It's but again, going back to your point about the striker, yeah, I mean, we've invested more money than we could have bought Mbappe for with players that we didn't need and haven't bought a player that we could need. And that is a frustration. And I agree with you on that. So,
yeah, we got to come up here. So Dale saying you don't blame Pochettino is crazy. It's not all his fault. But for a manager to be supposedly good with young players, unless you're telling me Poch isn't the guy you perceive him to be. I mean, yeah, historically he's good with young players, but he's also playing with the young players that wouldn't be considered the first choice either. Does that make sense? When we played against Arsenal, there's a big hoo-ha about, Arsenal, we managed to get a point against them, but we were playing the full strength Arsenal team with our players that some of them wouldn't start, do you know what I mean? Like Gallagher's kind of played himself into that position, but, Nicolas Jackson would be starting if Nicolas Nkunku was available. Christopher Nkunku was fit, was he? So I think it's just one of those situations. I can't blame Pochettino in this scenario. I really can't. If you look at the stats from the second half, we dominated possession again. Expected goals, it was 71%. We had expected goals of 1, but the problem is he can't force them to put the ball in the back of the net. Do you know what I mean? He can't make them score goals. He really, really can't. He can get them into the position to score the goals, and he's clearly doing so, getting them in that area. But Brentford 29%, expected goals 2. They were clinical. That's the thing. Chelsea, it doesn't matter if it's Pochettino, it doesn't matter if it's Potter, it doesn't matter if it's Lampard, it doesn't matter who is in that manager's dugout. It's the same thing every single time. We still just can't score goals. We can't find a way to break down the low block, which is just how we're going to do. We need to resolve that issue, and if that's going to be Ivan Toney holding at the ball to lay off players, it's going to find a different way to play. But I worry if we bring in another striker, which we should do. I worry that the striker is going to not solve the issue. It's just going to be, okay, well, we brought the striker in, it hasn't worked out. It's just going to be repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse. I think, Tem, do you think is it simply just a case of bringing in a striker, or is it just we just need to find different ways to play? We need a plan B.
Yeah, well, I think it's a collection of. I think everyone isn't. Nobody's blameless in this scenario. I think it also comes from a style of play. At the end of the day, I think if you saw we like kind of Dale has said, we shouldn't be losing at home to Brentford. I mean, come on. No. The funny scenario is we're trying to attract their player, and their player wasn't even playing, and they beat us 2-0 convincingly. That's the funny story away from home. So yeah, how do we sell that sort of plan to him if he has Arsenal, in his other ear saying, come to us and you're potentially winning a Premier League title. Yet we can't beat the team he is playing for at our home ground. So yeah, I think it is in a sense a Pochettino thing as well, because like I say, it comes from a track record of his not being able to beat these type of teams. But at the same time, I don't think much of this squad was assembled by him. So no. In the sense of, he can't be fully to blame, because like you say, I think we know a lot of these players were signed by the board or board of directors, and this is sort of the project he was given. And as we've seen now, he's been said that he's going to have more say in the transfers in January. So again, it'll be interesting to see the players maybe he brings in, or players that maybe get shipped out either in January or summer if he lasts that long, let's say. And at the end of the day, we don't have any goal scorers anyway. I think Raheem Sterling's a wildly inconsistent player. There's nobody else in our team who's been proven to score goals anywhere or even in the Premier League. So there's another issue. So again, like I say, you can't fully blame one person, but everybody is collectively there to blame. So I don't know if you agree with what I'm saying, guys, but yeah, that's my thoughts.
Tim, you do make an interesting point. I'll throw that to Charlie first and foremost. Like, Pochettino's getting more involved with the transfer side of things. I think I might know what you say, but where do you stand on this, like, kind of modern day, having a head of recruitment and recruiting people, and they're the people that bring in the players, and they're just giving the squad, say, there you go, try and make this work. Like, where do you stand on that side of things? Do you think like head coaches and managers should have more influence in the players that they actually attract to and bring to the club?
Well, yeah, I mean, in general, they probably should. But of course, it's probably been one of the reasons why a lot of managers have argued with owners over the years. And that's probably one of the reasons why they just have a separate department now. And that's kind of, they kind of have to swallow that, because no matter what club they go to, it's the same deal. So, you're getting paid 5-6 million quid a year. You've got to accept the fact that, and every club does it. It's not, I mean, I can't name one Premiership club where the manager has a budget and literally just Championship manager style just goes and picks the players he wants. It doesn't happen. He might, he might say, he might have some sort of influence. He might say, "Oh, I need a goalkeeper, I need a midfielder, I need a striker," which is what we've been saying all summer. We got none of them, basically. I mean, we got midfield. We got loads of midfielders. In fact, we got three midfielders. We didn't
the goalkeeper. We've got 2 goalies.
We've got, I mean, I wouldn't say it's the goalkeeper yet. I mean, it might be the goalkeeper, but I'm not 100% convinced yet. But best of luck. But we certainly didn't get the striker, did we? And yet we've been asking for this for a long time. The problem with the striker, and this is what I keep coming back to, is whoever the striker is going to basically have the amount of pressure that guy is going to have on his head. He's going to have to come for the money. It's like any job, right? If you've got a job that's high pressured, the only reason you're doing it is for money. You don't go and do a job like, you wouldn't run Amazon, for example, if they weren't paying you well, because you're going to have a heart. You're only going to be able to do it for a few years before you have a heart attack. Do you know what I mean? Like that's the way I look at it. So whoever takes on this job as the striker, or whatever we're going to say, he has to A, be confident in himself, and B, understand that we are relying on this guy, a bit like Lukaku when he came in. We were relying on him. He was the last ingredient in the recipe, if you like, and we really believed that once we got him, it was world domination. Actually, it went the other way, and I just think with the strikers, we can get it. So we've seen over the years, it's cursed almost, Chelsea, with number 9s or strikers or whatever. We've got to be so careful. And what happens if he gets injured? Then what have we got? We've got Jackson again. I mean, if you look at Man City, they've been without De Bruyne most of the season. They're still nearly top. They're still probably going to at least challenge heavily for the league title this season, if not win it, and the Champions League, and probably the FA. They could potentially win the treble again. That's not against the question. They've had Haaland out for periods. They had Rodri out for a few games. Okay, they lost those games, I'll grant it. But they seem to. It doesn't matter who's out. They seem to be able to do that. If you're saying to me now that Chelsea, if we get one striker, that's it. We're going to win every. I don't think so. I still don't. There's other things going on there. We're still not quite good enough on all areas of the pitch. Not just the striker. It's just that's the weak point in a bad team at the moment, if that makes sense.
I mean, I get it, but also at the same time, I don't think it is. That is the weak point, and I genuinely don't think we need strengthening in defence. I don't. I don't think we need strengthening in midfield really currently at the moment. I think the areas that we need to look at is the striker and also that right winger side situation, because I don't. It's still relatively early days, but I'm not seeing it with Madueke. I'm starting to see elements with Mudryk. Elements, I will admit. I'm seeing a little bit to him. But Madueke, I'm not seeing it just quite yet. I mean, it could be all resolved, and Kuku's due to return to the first team setup, and it could be available for selection by middle of November. So it could be a couple of weeks. He could be available for what's the game after Spurs? So it could even be the game after. Is it City?
Yeah, City or I mean, it's a horrible
He,
run of fixtures, whatever it is. Yeah.
he could be, even if it be made available then, like even to make an appearance on the bench, which will bring a big massive boost. And then he's got the run of games, and then December as well before the club needs to make a decision of, okay, what if Nkuku's not going to be ready? We've got to go into the market. And is that player that's going to be? I mean, for me, Tem, you could tell me otherwise, but it's got to be, if we do go in, it's got to be Toney. It's the only other option I can see. The problem is Toney is a commodity right now. I think Ivan Toney can command where he wants to go at this moment of time, because you look at Arsenal, Gabriel Jesus is injured as well, so they need a striker. They've got Eddie Nketiah, who's relatively seen as like the second string option, but he just banged in a hat-trick at the weekend. Is Chelsea even stand a chance of getting Ivan Toney, or do we need to look elsewhere? Are we looking again at a player that's not quite hit the heights in the Premier League, and we've got to look for abroad and kind of hope that this player is going to score goals?
Well, I think you get Toney at Chelsea, and you probably get us challenging for top 7, and that's being kind, because I think he does elevate our games, but but you've got to think of everyone else even just above us at the moment. You look at your West Hams, you look at your Villas, you look at your Brightons, you look at just outside of that top 6, top 5. I think they are the teams we are at the moment aspiring to get to. I mean, look at, like I say, Aston Villa's turnaround and their
They're
current form.
flying.
Every game just seems to be a win, 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 win. And it sort of just reminds me of how we were under Thomas Tuchel. He's had the same effect for them, I suppose, where it's just a winning mentality thing now. Every game, you can see them scoring. I get notifications for all Premier League games. I like to see these scoring patterns, and it's something that really frustrates me. I always say, you'll see them 1-0 up within 30, 40 minutes of the game, 1-0 up, 1-0 up. And that sort of changes dynamic of the game, where the other team has to come out and play now. You can play into their hands. You can sort of lure them in, counter-attack, 2-0 up, game over, finish, done. And yeah, like I say, maybe it's a lack of experience from us. Maybe it's a lack of clinical finishing. That's where we'll need someone like Toney to ease off that pressure and get us a goal early on, so we can maybe start playing this slow, mundane football, or patient build up where we sort of tire our opponents out or draw them out a bit more to because we have seen we are good with space. We are good with space. So again, it's crucial we get that first goal. So maybe Toney is that answer. I don't know, but I don't like teams that are heavily reliant on the striker. I think we've seen it, especially in Liverpool over the years and early 2000s, late 2000s, where all their play was focused on just playing to the striker. You've seen it with, they had Torres, they had Fowler, Owen, players like that, where they literally they set their game plan to play for their striker, and it was nothing else except getting the very best. And that's why you've seen so many strikers do well at Liverpool, because that's the way they've always played, I suppose, to get the best out of their striker. And I think with Chelsea, it's always been like, you need to be multifaceted to play for Chelsea. You need to. We've had, famously Didier Drogba, and well, fortunately and unfortunately, where he's just good at everything. And Diego Costa was pretty similar, where he was good at most things as well. So we built upon that of, having a striker who can do a lot of things that good. And right now we're seeing strikers who maybe are good at one or two things. We've seen it with Tammy. he was just a very good 6-yard box player, I suppose, but he wasn't brilliant at running down the channel or holding off players and doing all that sort of stuff. And maybe that's been our drop off now. And you see with Jackson, he's not very good in the box. He may be good at doing 1-2s and coming deep to collect the ball, but he's not very good at, first time finishing or quick runs into the box and knowing where to be. So it's a tricky one to answer. I don't know, Tom. I'll leave it. I don't know what you think.
I mean, rumours are flying around that potentially, with Tammy Abraham at Roma and Lukaku being at Roma as well, that Tammy Abraham might be offered to Chelsea as part of the deal to bring Lukaku to Roma. But to me, that kind of stems a little bit. Maybe it's me, Charlie. Maybe I've got my rose-tinted glasses on. You could probably tell me if I do. But he kind of left unceremoniously. I think it left 2 before his time. He's averaging 1 in 3 in Serie A. He's got a really good proven goal scoring record. He can do it in the Premier League. But if the option's not there to get Toney or Osimhen or waiting for Nkunku, I feel like even if we got Nkunku back fully fit, having Tammy Abraham back is a much better option to have in that location than Nicolas Jackson. Would you agree?
Yeah, and I think with Nicolas Jackson, I think the problem was he had a good pre-season, and I think what happened is I don't think he was meant to come in as the go-to guy,
No.
but I think because he had a good pre-season and because he started the season okay before the transfer window ended, I think most fans were kind of on side at that point. The owners probably just thought maybe he is the man, and maybe he's the guy, and if we could do it on the cheap, then brilliant. And that's basically, I think that's basically what happened. And they probably went, well, Toney's going to be available in January. If it doesn't work with Jackson, we'll get Toney. That's kind of I think that was the broad thinking between this. With regards to Abraham, no, I don't want him back, to be honest. We've done that with Lukaku. We've done it with other players. I don't want this. We just no. It doesn't work. It's never worked for anyone.
It's worked for David Luiz. It's worked for Nemanja Matic.
Yeah, okay.
Has worked.
But firstly, Matic was half. He wasn't really a sort of first team regular. I wouldn't say.
Yes, he was.
Before when he came back.
No.
When he came back, he was, yeah. But before he wasn't. Luiz, yes, but I think it's fairly obvious there was something financially weird about those transfers. To be honest, it was very, very odd. But yeah, I mean, look, in terms of Abraham, I think he's a good player. But again, is he the answer? No. But our standards have dropped now. Unfortunately, we have to. Yeah. This is the market we're in. We are not going to be in for Osimhen. We're not probably even Toney. We're going to be massively against other clubs. All that we have is money. That's the only draw now, and obviously that breeds mercenaries as we've discovered. So it's like we're in that Man United situation. We've got a good reputation as a football club in terms of history. We've got and we've got money. Those are the 2 draws. In terms of like what you're walking into a volcano at the moment, and you're hoping that you get out, and that's basically what it is. And it's very unlikely you're going to sign there and win a Ballon d'Or. Let's put it that way. So if you've got any sort of footballing future, if you like, you wouldn't join Chelsea at the moment, just the way it is, unless you're very young. That's the other option, is we get lucky, a bit like Liverpool did with Salah. They got a little bit lucky. I wouldn't say lucky, but they got a player who was at the time probably about their standard, but he elevated his game when he got to Liverpool. He was still good for Roma, no doubt about it, but he's become a world-class player now. There's no doubt about that.
I mean, Temba, do you think maybe Tammy as a make weight in the Lukaku deal could add a bit of depth to that of number 9 position, even if Nkunku is the first choice?
Again, I think it's a thing, as Charlie said. I think our standards would have dropped if we got Tammy. Maybe if we got two strikers at the same time and not relied on Tammy as the number 1, I would be okay with that. But Tammy Abraham
Well,
as a number one striker, I don't think
no,
that
not
is
necessarily.
the
Like I said, not as a number one striker, because I don't think Tammy would come in as a number one. But I think Nkuku's going to play in that number 9 position. Like, I'm fairly certain that'll be the case. But in the event that Nkuku, famously he has had some injury problems throughout the seasons. But is Tammy Abraham coming in? Is he a stronger option going forward? So if Nkuku does get injured and we have to bring in Nicolas Jackson, he's very hit and miss. He's still very young. He's still learning. But could Tammy Abraham bring that strength and depth that we needed? Because again, Armando Broja, came in and did score in that game. But is he going to provide that depth to Chelsea in that position as a number 2?
I think it's more of a romance thing. I think it's just because we know who Tammy Abraham is. I don't think him and Chelsea should let's say reconcile again. I think he's had his chapter. He's won the Champions League here. He's won the Club World Cup. He's won his few trophies here, and we should just leave it at that. I saw that he was close to signing for Aston Villa. I think that would have been a good move for him, especially with them being back in Europe. I know we have the Club World Cup next year, but I don't see I wouldn't like to see a scenario where Tammy Abraham comes back to the club. As much as I think he was a decent striker, to be honest, he was the last player who scored 15 goals in one season.
Yep.
I don't think any striker has actually hit any. I think our last highest top goal scorer last season was Havertz with 7 goals, tied with Jorginho as well. And then the season before that was Jorginho again with 8 penalties. So again, it just shows you like the big drop off.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me,
can you guys hear me?
I can hear you. I'm just going to say that you're both wrong, and I think we should re-sign Tammy Abraham as part of the deal for Romelu Lukaku. But we need to move swiftly on. In interest in keeping this for an hour, so let's look towards very briefly touching upon this. Chelsea play Blackburn on Wednesday in the round of 16 in the League Cup. What would you like to see from that game? Very briefly on your thoughts on that. It's a home game. Can you see Pochettino potentially moving things around, seeing like Ugochukwu starting in the game? What would you like to see? Would you like to see more time given to some of the fringe players, that we have? Or do you think, we need to go all out and make sure that we're playing the strongest 11 possible? Charlie?
Definitely don't play the strongest 11 possible with the run of games we've got. Look, it's rotation as far as I'm concerned, likes of Silva, even Sanchez, just anyone who could potentially get injured. You don't want an injury. We had this like last season with Chilwell, didn't we? Do you remember? He got injured in the match. It was a Champions League match. It really didn't matter. I think we were already through or something at the time. I'm not saying that this doesn't matter, but I honestly wouldn't lose sleep if we lost that match. I really wouldn't, because I don't think we'll win it anyway, regardless. Because the further you go in the competition, the further you go in the competition, the harder it gets. And I can't see, based upon last season's finals, Man United versus Newcastle, I think both of those teams beat us. So if that's the standard, and before that has always been Man City, I'm sorry, I just think we'll lose anyway. So it's a waste of time. The focus has to be on the league. Do you honestly think a good cut run's gonna, unless we get to the final? We have to get to the final, I would say. It's not considered a good cut run. No one remembers the Carling Cup semi-finalists or whatever cup. I can't remember what the cup's called. That's how little it matters. The semi-finalists of that cup, I couldn't even tell you who that was last season, because I don't know. Because it doesn't matter. So you have to get to the final to even make it matter. And I just don't. Is it the quarterfinal we're in now? Is it not
round of 16?
Round this, it's laughable. I mean, I would just rest a load of players, give some young people a chance. Obviously play to win, but I'm just saying I certainly wouldn't be risking getting players injured and stuff like that. It's just not worth it. I don't know.
Timber full strength or rotate?
A bit of both. I think we could win this game without a full 11. I think a couple of changes I would do, but I would keep some strong players in that 11, because I think, unlike Charlie, I actually do think we have a very good chance of getting into the final. If you look at the other draws, I think West Ham play Arsenal, Man United play Newcastle, Man City are out. Yep. I can't remember the other top team that's in there, but I think Mansfield Town and someone.
think Liverpool are out,
Mansfield
aren't
Town
they?
and someone else. Yeah, I think Liverpool might be the only other one. So if we get a good draw in the last 8, we're in the last 4,
Tottenham are
and
out,
therefore if you
definitely.
and if you
They
see if you saw us last season when we played, what was it, Dortmund at home, we can pull out a one-off performance like that. I think in the league we'll struggle against, to do that 38 games throughout, but on a one-off game, I would back us to beat anyone at home. I think we could do that, and it's something I think these players sort of need, just some sort of confidence, and a cup like this would be perfect. Even if we got to the final and lost, it just shows to them at least we can get to that level and we're good enough to compete with the others. And I think it's something you need to kind of instill with young players, and especially with us right now. I think confidence is probably at all-time low at the end of games, when you see, oh, it's frustration and we lost that game. But, performance may be good, but results are all that matter. And, in a cup game, it's all about result. You can't play well in a cup and not get anything from it or look upon the next game, because it's next season at the end of the day. So I think we really need this, and I think we could do it if we get the right draw.
We're just not good. We're just not good enough, are we? Let's face it. Without, we're 11th in the league. I mean, people forget this. We are not good. It's not like we're good enough to get to the final anyway. Even if we want to, Newcastle came second last season, right, in this competition, as in they lost in the final against Man United, right? And Newcastle now in the Champions League, and they are good, and they're flying, and they're probably going to get top 4 this season, right? Again,
are Man United good?
Man United,
no, not anymore. No, and they weren't. But last season, I thought they were okay. I thought they were getting somewhere. To be fair, I thought they were getting.
It's a trick. I think Temba makes a valid point. There are a lot of all Premier League ties. West Ham versus Arsenal. That's going to knock one of those two out. You got Bournemouth versus Liverpool. Liverpool is probably the more likely to go through. Everton, Burnley, Man United, Newcastle, and then you've got Ipswich Town and Fulham. Mansfield Town versus Port Vale, and Exeter City versus Middlesbrough. I mean, I know this is silly and we shouldn't really be talking about it, but Mansfield Town or Port Vale are going to go through. Exeter or Middlesbrough are going to go through. You don't know how luck of the draw is going to go. It could end up with Arsenal playing, Port Vale and Middlesbrough in the semi-final. It could happen. You never know. I think when it comes to cups like this, we at this stage, we're 11th. Beggars can't be choosers. We've got to kind of pick our wins, and I think if we can try and get a decent cup run, it's like what Temba said. It could build wonders for the confidence of the younger players. So you never know, but chances are we're probably going to go with a bit of rotation on this one. But we should see come Wednesday at 10 p.m.
I'd like to see Petrovic start.
I would like to see it as well. I would like to see it. I can't see it happening, but I would like to see it, because just to give him the opportunity, I think it would be good to see him in that. Let's move swiftly on. We'll try and keep this as close as we can to the hour. I'm probably going to run over in this scenario, but we need to look forward to next Monday's game at 8 p.m. It will be Chelsea taking a visit to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium to try and beat a high-flying Ange Postecoglou's Spurs. I'm compared to where I were last week. I'm not as confident in this game as I was against Brentford, and it's going to be a tricky one, dude. Charlie, I mean, we're going to go live straight after this, so we'll delay the start of the podcast next week to do live reaction on this one. So we should probably be loads of Spurs fans in the comments giving it the big one. But this is a big game. And Charlie, you think we do perform better against teams in the top 6, and let's face it, they're flying at the moment. Do you feel that Chelsea could potentially get even some points from this game?
Look, anything can happen in the Premier League. That's all I'm going to say. Stranger things have happened. They're probably due a bad result, if that makes sense. But I mean, look, on the form, under the lights, all this sort of stuff, you can only really see one thing. We had the similar game last season. We walked into it. We kind of knew that they were on better form, and they're much better this season as well. And we're probably as bad, if not worse. And they beat us. I think it was 2-0. I mean, again, it's one of these matches where against Arsenal, when you come off the back of it, despite the 2-2 draw, I was still quite satisfied that we put on a performance, probably the best performance we've had all season, again against Liverpool as well, early in the season with a draw. So if we got a point, or even if we lost, but we gave it a fight, I think I'd be more than satisfied at this stage of, and that's just where we are at the moment, unfortunately, and where they are at the moment. As long as we don't get battered, basically, as long as we don't go there and lose 5, 6, 7-0, then I'm quite happy. I think I'm quite happy at that point. Yeah. So,
Temba, do you think there's a possibility that Chelsea could go to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, get the pants pulled down, and lose 5, 6, 7-0?
Yeah, well, I completely hope so. I mean, hopefully we see a Raheem Sterling masterclass and every shot
said
he
lose.
takes goes in.
yeah, you said lose.
Right. Oh,
Yeah,
You're like,
I
hope so.
Yeah, hope so. Yeah, I'll kick him in.
Yeah, no. Well, I think that's 98% guaranteed at the moment we lose that game. I think Spurs score 2 or 3 and Chelsea go home crying. I think that's what's going to happen. But I would like to see a scenario where we just sort of do a Una reverse and absolutely clinical Mourinho masterclass where we defend with our lives and on the line and just get away with absolutely stealing 3 points from them. But at the end of the day, I think we all know it's going to be a 2 or 3-0 at least scoreline with the way we're playing. And just more doom, I suppose. I think this fixture comes at the wrong time. If it came straight after that Liverpool game, I'd be feeling a bit more confident, or maybe straight after that Arsenal game. But with the way the fixtures have panned out, I'm not sure how much morale has gone out of this team, especially with the injuries and just the inconsistencies, I suppose. And I think is the next game after that Man City.
I'll have a look, but keep going.
I believe so.
Man City
at home, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's crucial we just don't get beat badly and put in a decent performance, and hopefully against Man City we can try do the same. Or if we do get beat, at least keep the scoreline down and just show at least that there's something to salvage from this season, because I think 5 more games and this season's probably already over. If we lose every single game now till the end of December, you could practically say the season's over. You're just looking at maybe trying to finish 10th. And that's sad to say that your season's over after, 13, 14 games?
2 seasons in a row as well. And we all said all the way through last season, the only salvation is the end of the season. And this season, it's a process and we'll get better. I mean, Arsenal never stooped this low. They never stooped this low. People forget about this. Yeah.
Arsenal were bottom at one point, though. I know it was
but they never
early days under Mikel
Arteta,
Arteta.
but in terms of their finished place, I don't think they ever finished mid-table. They finished 8th, maybe. That's probably about as bad as it got.
Yeah, I don't think they got as bad as us.
They never
Andrew there saying, being a Liverpool fan, I'm more than happy with your current squad, but with the money you have, Victor Osimhen has to be a top target. I think we mentioned earlier on, I don't think Chelsea is a bigger draw, as it were. We're going to have to play it over the odds to get Victor Osimhen. I don't think he actually wants to leave Napoli just yet at the moment either. And the Napoli chairman doesn't even want to sell him, so he's kind of tied there. So hopefully, I own Toney in the January transfer window if he doesn't go to Arsenal. But let's quickly round this one up. So, Charlie, what do you reckon the score's going to be on Monday when Chelsea visits Tottenham Hotspur Stadium?
Tottenham 2, Chelsea 0. Realistically, I don't think we'll score, and I think they'll just be too good for us on the day. I don't think we'll get battered, but I just think they'll be too good for us on the day.
We do get battered everywhere we go. Temba?
Yeah, just to say to Andrew, if he doesn't know who De Laurentiis is, he's gonna know if Liverpool ever tried doing business with Napoli. He's just like the Daniel Levy of Italian owners. Yeah. So we're definitely not getting Osimhen. About the scoreline, 3-0 Spurs, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm going to go wildly optimistic, and I'm going to say I'm going to go score draw. I'm going to do that. I'm not going to give actually a thing. I'm going to say score draw. I don't think we'll score an open play, though. I think it's probably going to be some sort of penalty or some sort of nonsense. But yeah, we shall see what happens in that scenario. We will be live next Monday. Usually we do these at 9:30, the We Talk Chelsea podcast, but we'll be live straight after the game at 10 p.m. Knowing this, chances are that the extra time, not extra time, but injury time that goes into that scenario. We do this. If you haven't found this this evening, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It really, really helps us. We want to do that. We've been live on TKS TV. You can hit that at youtube.com/We Talk Chelsea podcast. We'll be back next Monday at 10 p.m. We will speak to you next week. Up the Chelsea.